Well, hello everybody. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for this SingSeptember event. I am Pippa Goodall, the BABS Director of Finance, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Sound Hypothesis this evening. Sound Hypothesis are the 2019 BABS Quartet champions. Aaron sings tenor, Conrad on lead, Hugh sings baritone, and Alex sings bass. Sound Hypothesis will share what they have learned about quartet identity in over 5 years together, from their first beginnings to taking home the gold at BABS and weathering the turbulence of personnel changes along the way. We will then finish with a Q&A. So if you would like to ask Sound Hypothesis a question, just please post your questions in the comments on the YouTube link on this stream below, and we will try and get them all answered at the end. So yeah, over to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
All good, thank you.
Thanks, Pippa. We're doing really well.
Wonderful. Well, I'm very excited for this session, so I will now leave you to it and hand over to you. Take it away.
Thanks very much, Pippa. I'm gonna figure out how to share this screen. What can you see right now? Oh. What can we see here?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
Excellent. Cool. So welcome to creating a quartet identity with Sound Hypothesis. I'm going to give you a rundown of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover social media, song choice, performing, finding the things that set you apart as a quartet, and building an internally happy quartet. And yeah, we're just going to basically talk to you about things that we've learned as a quartet on these subjects, how we do things in Sound Hypothesis, what we think our identity is in a lot of these aspects, and like hopefully help you find your own identity and answer questions about who you are as a quartet or a chorus. So let's kick off. So who are Sound Hypothesis? Well,
Who indeed?
It's a good question.
You might think that we're just kind of a barbershop quartet, but we're not. We're actually three discrete barbershop quartets. Yeah, it's we've been through a few evolutions through the years. From our beginnings in the top left, we had Ehsan and Aaron with us, and Ehsan has left, Aaron's left, and replaced with Aaron and Hugh over the years, and every quartet has brought a new evolution to the sound and evolution to who we are as a quartet. And I think most recently, you know, weathering the storm, I think was the quote in the introduction of kind of personnel changes in these turbulent times. It's forced us to kind of really consider, like, what is our identity? Why do we want to keep singing as Sound Hypothesis? You know, you're always faced with an option. If a member of your quartet leaves, you can stop or you can keep going. And for us, I think we had to kind of ask the question of, you know, what's our identity? Who's the person we're looking for to kind of complete the Sound Hypothesis puzzle? And so we had to do quite a bit of soul searching throughout that and figure out actually who do we want to join us, like who would be the right person for us. So I guess that's kind of what's inspired a lot of the thinking in this talk. So I think I'm going to pass over now to Aaron, Bayless Chalmers.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, as Conrad says, I think it's kind of fair to say that as a group we've been through not least a number of personnel changes and have really had to think about what we want to be as a quartet. But from the perspective of social media as well, it's been a really sort of interesting growth to watch. Obviously, I watched part of it from the outside as well before joining the quartet, and it's been nice to see how the group changed from having Ehsan in. Everyone was very much more of you know, like a little bit of a goofball mentality, sort of brought in once things started to get a little bit more serious. You know, with the silver medals, everything sort of started to come a little bit more serious, and we wanted to engage more with the barbershop audience. And now I think we've kind of done what we would have liked to do, and I think have gone back to engaging on a very personal level with a lot of people using social media, but with a bit of a professional air to it, I would say. So yeah, I think one of the main questions that you have to ask yourself, and I think one of the main questions that we ask ourselves quite a lot, as a performing quartet, obviously you're quite used to engaging with an audience while you're on stage, but how do you maintain that engagement, and how do you present yourselves as that quartet consistently while you're off stage? And I think when I joined the quartet, the social media was comparatively in its more in its infancy, I would say, and it's been really nice to be in the quartet and watch it develop. I think we end up naturally having a discussion about what we're, I guess, putting out into the world every 3-4 months or so, something like that. Particularly in the lead up to things like convention and big gigs that we're doing. It's like, oh, hold on a second, what are we putting on the Instagram this week? Like, that's the kind of discussion that you end up having occasionally. But I think a lot of it
discussion is just along the lines of let's keep posting, keep posting,
exactly,
and not forget about it.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it ties into, and this is going to be next slide, Conrad. A lot of it ties into what we have in our mind as our brand image, which is essentially a product of what do you want to do and why do you want to do it on social media. And again, I think the topics that we have here, like, do you want to be getting more gigs? What types of gigs do you want to be getting? Do you want to just be posting dank tags and barbershop reharms 24/7? Like,
Yes.
And I think,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, but I think specifically what we kind of wanted to do at the start was to let our friends know what we were up to, particularly when the quartet was starting to really develop and actually make a name for itself in the barbershop world. It was more of a, oh, we're actually doing something really cool now, so we kind of want to push the social media in a certain direction. And I think that's one of the things that comes with a developing brand as well. You sort of want to think about how personal you're being as a social media group versus how professional you're trying to be. So you see lots of musical groups out there that have a decidedly professional presence, to their credit, I would say. And I think that where we're at the minute in terms of our development is that we're not quite in the fully professional realm. And I think as a group, we really enjoy keeping a lot of the personal stuff that we do as a significant portion of what we're putting out there. And I think you, as a quartet or as a chorus, it's kind of one of the main things that you want to think about, how professional versus how personal you want to be on your social media. And I think it's kind of true that the bigger you become and the more people that you're engaging with, the more naturally more professional the group becomes. But again, this is kind of just speaking from our own experience. And I would say that, your brand is always developing. And this kind of ties back to having different evolutions of the group here. Like, our social media is naturally going to be different now going forwards with Hugh in the quartet, because, it's Hugh and not Aaron. But I think this links quite nicely onto the next slide, Conrad. And it comes back to how do you engage with the audience off stage as well as on stage. And I think what we've really learned over the last year, I would say, probably 2018-19 was the time that we really recognized this, was that we want to be professionally presenting our personalities. And I've sort of put it down here as professional personalism or personable professionalism. But if you've been paying attention to any sort of our social media over the last year or so, you will have seen a fair few more memes and a fair few more videos that I think we're really proud to put out, because it really shows us as who we are. But I don't think that doing something like the gig that everyone's talking about, or what turned into the live stream that everyone's talking about, ever really takes away from that. And that appears as a much more professional aspect of what we end up doing. But yeah, I think there's a lot to learn in terms of social media, I think, and it's a very, very personal journey. So pay attention to what you want to be putting out there, and I think that naturally your brand image develops into what you want to be putting out there by, in a sense, doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that. Yeah, exactly.
I'd add to that something which ABC was talking about when we were talking about these slides. ABC was talking about how we try not to get sort of hung up on what we put out, and we sort of try and go on of if it's a funny photo, or if it's kind of cute, or if we feel that it shows or embodies our personality in any way, go for it. Just put it out there. I think a lot of groups that we as Quartet have been in the past have kind of suffered from, oh, we mustn't put out anything else unless it's kind of perfect. But actually, because our brand is this personable brand, because we want to engage almost as friends with our audience, then it's coherent with that to put things out that aren't that polished or a little bit kind of behind the scenes.
But I will add to that the real life Frogger video is art. It is perfect. It's a perfect piece of art.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
yeah. And also
we'll link that in the event afterwards. Yeah.
The performance art of you and Aaron going into the sea in Llandudno in the middle of November. That's also performance art, highly staged, full crew.
Yeah, we had coffee waiting just behind the scenes. I remember it vividly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth treating these kind of things, social media things, as an opportunity just to archive the fun things you're doing, like an opportunity to construct and curate a page for yourself that you individually want to go back and browse through and say, wasn't that fun? And I think if you follow that principle, then kind of, the engagement will follow.
Amen.
Next.
Cool. So this is me. I'm just going to experiment a bit here. Can you still see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. It says your screen sharing is paused, but that's okay because it's not paused. So great. So this section is the section on song choice, and I'm going to talk about this because I'm the lead and what I say goes on song choice. So so I guess the first question is, like, how should you choose a song? It's fairly obvious that it's an important part of your identity, the songs you choose, but how should you choose a song? And the answer is using a spreadsheet. At least if you're geeky like us, we think that using a spreadsheet is a great way to organize your song choices. And there's a reason for this. I've just been joined by a special guest here today.
Hi guys. Which microphone am I using?
This microphone.
Hey, thought I'd just come say hi. How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah?
I'm just going to talk to the guys about song choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I should probably. Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, I can probably go look.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'll do that. Okay, I'll see you soon. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Bye, man.
Yeah. See you later.
Jeez. I live with him now. We're not breaking any rules, promise. So anyway, back to it. Sorry. So yeah, I guess what do spreadsheets tell you? So for us, we found that kind of historically is actually a really small minority of songs that really speak to us. I think it's fair to say. So we have to go through a vast amount of songs to actually find something that we think, yeah, this is a sound hypothesis song. Like we listen to tons and tons of tunes. So it's good to keep track of what you've listened to and keep track of the reasons why you didn't like it, because those might change over time. One thing that we often find is that we'll learn a song and then we'll actually kind of park it and come back to it a couple of years later and then take it to competition. That is a pattern that seems to have happened a few times, right?
We have actually done it like 3 times, yeah.
Yeah, so if we want to sing a song in competition, we need to start learning about 3 years before we want to do it so that we can give it that resting time. I don't know why that is, but it seems to happen that way. Anyway, so it's kind of good to track through that. And it's also good to keep track of opinions. Yeah, because, maybe you have a song that's too high for your tenor or too low for your bass or too low for your lead. Which often happens with me because I'm quite a high lead. So it's good to keep track of those kind of facts because those might change, and also just the opinions of the different group members. But the key thing to remember is, lead is God, and the lead has the final veto. Why is that? So my job as lead is to carry the emotional message of the song, and everyone else's job is to support my message. So I have to believe in the message of the song in order to do a convincing performance. So I get final veto if I think a song is weird, or if I really love a song, I can kind of overpower and overrule. It doesn't happen too much. But yeah, that's how we interpret it anyway. That the lead is the kind of, I think this is kind of how most people interpret it. This is certainly how we've been coached, and certainly what we've experienced in barbershop so far is, the lead kind of carries the emotional weight and everyone supports. So I've definitely vetoed a few songs that I'm not interested in that the rest of the quartet are. And yeah, it's an interesting one. Aside from the message, I guess, why should you choose a song? You should speak to it because, the melody speaks to you, it lifts your soul, or you really enjoy the harmony, or any of these reasons for liking a song, I feel are valid. You might like the lyrics in a certain place, or you might like the fact that it has a really stupid high chord. Like that's all valid. I think for Sound Hypothesis, we've got a few things that we keep coming back to, and part of our identity and song choices, we definitely tend to choose things that I suppose are more challenging. And we also love quite a sad ballad. That's true as well. I think we're quite instant classic in that vein.
I think the choosing challenging songs probably lends itself to why it takes us so long for us to, want to do them at convention.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah, I think that probably plays a part. They have to be just right, I suppose. So I was going to tell just a couple of stories about song choices that I think illustrate kind of how the songs you choose can play a part of your identity as a quartet. And you guys correct me if I'm getting the details of this wrong. So BABS Prelims 2016 was our first prelims. And we rocked up there, not really knowing what barbershop was, really, not really knowing how to get through the system and find our rehearsal room or any of these things. And we sung I Can't Buy You Anything But Love, which was the Ringmasters version, and It's You by Vocal Spectrum. And those are two quite tricky songs. I say especially It's You. They're not kind of trivial songs, and probably not something you'll recommend, I wouldn't say, to a beginner's quartet if you were just kind of going out and saying, hey, here's barbershop. And realistically, we probably could have scored higher if we'd gone out and sung some simpler songs. If we'd sung some polecats, or something easier, we might well have scored higher. But when we had our prelims evaluations, it was Buddha Bryn who did our evaluations and kind of introduced us to the world of barbershop evaluations and everything. And she was super encouraging, and she told us about swipes, and we didn't know what they were. But she said, got to make sure those swipes are coming through, and we said, sure thing. But
yeah, what's a swipe? We said, yeah.
So what's a swipe?
And she said, I see. Right, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, but then I think, if I recall correctly, I mean, I have terrible memory, so I might just making this whole thing up, but I don't think I am. She said people might tell you to stick to simpler songs, and they might tell you to kind of go for sort of, I don't know, something slightly more suiting a quartet of your experience. But I can see that you enjoy singing this kind of challenging stuff, and I think you should keep seeking that out and seeking out that challenging stuff. And it was really good advice, I think, for us, because we definitely all, at the time, really took to that kind of challenging, technically difficult material. And I think we enjoyed the challenge of it. And for us as a quartet, I think challenges, and I think that's why we're drawn to competition. We're all quite competitive. We like to see how far we can take it. And so for us to get that kind of feedback of like, yeah, go for it, like keep singing those challenging songs, that was really good feedback to get. And we kind of, we followed that, and we've always, I guess, sung quite challenging stuff. I don't know if you guys have anything to say to add on to that.
No.
Yeah. Cool. So that was one story about song choice and how we learned a bit about our identity as a result, I suppose. And the second one is the following prelims in 2017, we sang a song called I'll Be Seeing You, which you might know. And if you go on Wikipedia, it says, "I'll be seeing you" as a popular song about nostalgia. And that's true. The lyrics are, "I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well, etc., etc." So it's very kind of harking back to a happier time. And we sang it at prelims in 2017 because we really liked the song and we really took to it, and I think we got something from it. And you know, afterwards, somebody, I believe they were a judge, said,
Yeah,
you know,
it was our evals judge. It was, yeah.
Was it our evals judge? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So she said, you know, when I saw that written down on the piece of paper, before you started to sing, I thought, you know, I didn't think I was going to believe it because it's a nostalgic song, and I didn't think you had the age and the experience to kind of carry it off. But then when you started singing, I could see that you kind of had found a way to interpret it for yourselves that worked. And I think, yeah, it's true. We kind of did, we didn't ever, I think at the start of that song, I don't think we ever had a conversation where we're like, is this song too nostalgic? Like, are we are we too young to sing this? We just found a way to interpret it ourselves that worked for us. Like we drew on past relationships we'd had, the happy times, the sad times, and we mapped that onto the performance. And we're going to talk more about performance later, so I don't want to kind of blow it all.
This was actually one of the songs that we learnt, and we were going to do it at a convention the previous year, and we just realized that we weren't there yet with the song, and we realized we had to take a bit longer to get to the message. And when we were preparing to do it at convention, we thought it was a happy song, or I thought it was a happy song. And then sort of, you know, a few months later, we sort of re-looked at it again, and we realized this is a really sad song. This is possibly one of the saddest songs that you could possibly sing. And you know, I won't go into why, but in other words, what I'm saying is we took the time to actually bring that song into our psyche and to make it part of our identity, and giving that song time to mature was really important for us.
Yeah, and we made Aaron's mum cry when we sung it, so that was good too.
That's a bonus.
That was a bonus. T'other Aaron.
Yeah, my mum doesn't cry.
So yeah, that's all I really had to say about song selection, I guess. Go for the songs that speak to you, and you know, don't necessarily rationalize it too much. Just do what feels right. Who's up next?
This is me, and it's a great segue.
Oh, are we on? Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this beautiful quote from the lyrics of That Old Quartet of Mine, the alternative opening penned by Lou Perry, is not the most important part that it comes straight from the heart and is sung with understanding and affection. Yes, that is the most important part. It's one of those lovely rhetorical questions. It is probably the most important thing about performing, but I think for me it actually speaks a lot about identity, because really next bit please, really the question is about, what are you saying? What are you trying to tell me? And the quartet that made these words famous, at least for me, Boston Common, they embodied this far better than, I mean, in my opinion, any quartet, male or female, that has graced, that we've had this century or last century, you know, in the last 100 years. They really understood the idea of what are you saying? Why are you standing on stage and singing a song to me? And if you can't answer that question, then you should gather together as a quartet and try and work it out. Boston Common actually, as many of you will know, they won in 1980, but they were the crowd favorite for years before that. They were a crowd favorite because they had something to say. They had something to say musically, they had something to say lyrically, and it was unique to them. And they, in fact, didn't compete in 1979, I believe, because they were protesting at what they saw as a homogenization of quartets. due in part, at least in part, to all of the quartets being coached by the same coaches who were also judges, and they sort of saw what they saw as a lack of variety and a lack of unique identity in the quartets. So next slide, please, Conrad. The best way to be unique is to be authentic. Don't try and find some way to be unique. Simply seek authenticity. And if you seek authenticity, then uniqueness will come, because you are a unique person. You are a unique set of four, each with unique experiences in the world. And if you copy, for example, all of the phrasing of a quartet, if you take a Bluegrass Student Union song and you sing it with exactly the same rhythm that they sung, or a Boston Commons song, and you try and sing it with the same phrasing, the same interpretation, exact same interpretation as them, you won't really be doing so authentically. And so even though, well, Boston Commons sang it with that rhythm, so surely it should work when we sing it with that rhythm. That's not necessarily true. What you need to do is to do what Boston Common did. You need to separate the outcome from the way they got there. And the way they got there was to understand what the words were saying and what the words meant to them, and then to sing that. And if you do that, the way that the words come out of your lead's mouth will be slightly different to the way that they came out of Rich Knapp's mouth. And as a result, it will be authentic and it will be unique. And after all, isn't that what we're talking about today? Finding a unique identity for your quartet. Next slide, please, Conrad. Another fantastic way to be unique, which is, yeah, just that, that's great, which is something that we've wrestled with is a lot, is being true to your own singing voice, because your own singing voice is also unique. So this is probably, would you guys agree, the thing that we've spent the most time on as a quartet is uncovering our true voices?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I'd say even in my pretty brief time in the group so far, this has definitely been the thing that I've had to work on most as well, is sort of getting rid of any preconceived notions of what I think I should sound like when I'm singing in a barbershop quartet, and sort of, yeah, with your help, figuring it out together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, preconceived notions of what it's like to be in a barbershop quartet. Oh boy. I mean, John Newell, who we had a lot of coaching with, will say sentences like, "Great, now do it like you're not in a barbershop quartet." I mean, we are from the UK, so why do we sing with an American accent? Are there, and actually, this is something that I think we might work on a bit more this year, is just finding ways to shed some more barbershopisms that we've managed to pick up. I think I'd like to think that perhaps compared to some quartets, we haven't picked up as many barbershopisms, but it's very easily done. It's very, very easily done. And not all of them are very good. They're just fashion. A lot of them are mostly just fashion. And if you seek your true voice, then you'll be onto a winner. There are two videos on YouTube. Well, there's many videos of John Newell on YouTube singing with real time, but there's a couple where he's not singing with real time, which I always enjoy watching. There's one where he sings with a quartet called Southern Cross, who were the Australian champions for a number of years. But there's one where John is singing, and I think it's in about 2000. And then, of course, just a few years later, John went on and won with real time. But the transformation between those two videos is astounding. In the first video, John is singing with a barbershop voice. He sounds a little bit like Max Q. He sounds a little bit. He's got some very barbershop-y vowels. All of the choreography is pretty similar to that what you might see with old school or that kind of quartet, and it doesn't really sound like John Newell's true voice. 5 years later, he won international gold with real time, and the thing that he has worked the most on with us is getting rid of all of that pretense, all of that stuff that's not unique to you. So that's something that's it was a fun experience. Another experience that I had down in Bristol, watching Ringmasters in concert, and we had the pleasure of singing some tags with Rasmus, their lead, afterwards, and we'd had a nice little chat, and busted out the music theory and did our level best to impress Rasmus and show him that even though we were a new quartet, we knew what we were talking about. And we sang a tag, and almost as soon as we started, Rasmus he stopped, and he sort of turned to me and sort of snapped, "Why are you singing like that?" And I sort of said, "Oh, I don't know, I'm trying to kind of do the resonance thing." And he said, "You have got so much bite in your speaking voice, so much kind of high-end resonance, that sound." He said, "You've got so much of that in your speaking voice, and yet when you start singing, you've suddenly switched it off." Well, and he was almost cross. He said, "Why have you done that?" And we were new to barbershop, and so for me that was a turning point of somebody saying to me, "You've got to sing with your voice. Stop trying to sound like anybody else." And when we were discussing this, Conrad said that John has said the same sort of stuff to you as well.
Yeah, that's true. Particularly when going down lower into my register, I'm quite a high voiced person, and the thing that John's really told me is just not to try and like I don't know, like put loads of meat into it, and just sing it with the kind of natural keep it true to my voice, and it sounds better as well. That's the thing. It sounds much better.
Yeah. Well, that's it from me on this section. The last lovely little quote is one from Crossroads at BABS last year, and they said, "Sing with all the colours of your voice," and I just thought that was a nice quote.
It's very nice.
Very nice.
So that's performing.
Sorry.
The next slide, yeah. So finding ways to set yourselves apart. Starting with your strengths is a really good place to start. Maybe you've got a really high tenor. Find some ways to put them center stage. If you've got a really high tenor, don't sing charts that don't really feature the tenor. Or if you've got a really fantastic bass, find something that's got some low Fs or maybe a little feature, because all of that's part of your identity. Real Time, they've got a chord that they sing at the end of about half their songs. In the Quartet Finals International, both of their songs end on exactly the same chord in exactly the same voicing, E, G sharp, B, and it rings. It really rings, and they make a point of that. So if there are things about you that you think are your strengths, find ways to feature those, find ways to show those off, because they are kind of part of your identity. We have made sound part of our identity. That's something that we really enjoy, is working on the sound, and being kind of nerdy about it, and being kind of very technical about focusing on that. And partly that's to our detriment in that we sort of neglect other things, but at the same time, it's a strength. And if you've got to work on your weaknesses, but you've also got to work on your strengths. And if you work on your strengths, you'll make it part of your identity. So if you think of a quartet and you say, well, you always think of their strengths, don't you? You don't think of their weaknesses. You don't think about the ways in which they are fine across the board. You think about, oh, they are amazing because X, Y, and Z. Next slide, please. So I thought on that vein, it would be fun to just pick a few quartets and sort of say, and obviously you guys please chime in here, to pick a few quartets and say, well, what are the things that set them apart? What's their identity? Maybe what's their strengths? And how are they a little bit different? So if I start off with Fred and the Newfangled Four, these are two comedy quartets. And people sometimes say of the Newfangled Four, oh, they were the new Fred. But really, their forms of comedy are pretty different. For me, Fred's form of comedy is the audience is encouraged to laugh at the quartet. Fred put on an act. It is an act of taking themselves seriously. It's almost things often go wrong in a Fred performance. The tenor will do something terrible, and the lead will get quite upset about it. The bass always seems quite happy with things, and actually, really, a lot of the comedy relies on that interaction between the lead being very frustrated, very frustrated that the tenor has done something wrong, and the audience is encouraged to laugh at that calamity. But then if we contrast that with Newfangled 4, it's a much more open form of comedy. It's a much more a form of kind of goofing around, and the audience is in on the joke a lot more of the time. So two fantastic quartets, both comedy quartets, but they're very different. Next slide, please. Do you guys want to chime in maybe with some pieces of identity of these four quartets?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the first quartets that I was ever introduced to by you guys when you were like, "Hey, go away and learn some more barbershop," and it was great. But this was around the time when I guess Instant Classic were very big, having recently won international, and I just remember watching their performance, and I'd seen a couple of other groups before. I could like names evade me at that stage, but I remember just being fixated by the fact that I believed every single thing that Theo was saying and singing, and it was just captivating to watch how the rest of the quartet became just such a believable storytelling entity.
They're very honest, aren't they?
Incredibly honest, yeah. I think they've just incredibly true to what they're saying, and they bring you in with that, I think.
Yeah. They're quite an earnest. Like there are certain songs that I don't think they could really pull off. Like, well, if we move on to acoustics, they couldn't really. Well, maybe they could, but I don't think it would fit with their identity, and maybe they wouldn't wish to pull off a kind of, we're just gonna stand and deliver a song and absolutely crush it and ring it, and and we're wearing tuxes whilst we do it. Whereas acoustics,
put the challenge out there now, Alex.
Well,
they'll hear this, and they'll know.
Hear us Instant Classic, just go and do that. But they're not an arrogant quartet. They don't come across as an arrogant quartet, and so they don't want to, maybe. And so, but other quartets do, and that works for them. I mean, there's a line that Jeff Oxley from Acoustics said with Max Q. He said, "Here's to all those basses with an ego half as big as mine. Here's to the winners. Here's to all those basses with an ego half as big as mine." So, and that was sort of harking back to those acoustics days when Jeff Oxley would just sort of stand and say, "I'm looking over a 4-leaf clover," and it's got that kind of swagger, which totally worked for acoustics. Almost especially the way that they burst onto the scene, and they won first time out. So it all kind of ties in.
Yeah, like that in itself is part of their identity. You mean the fact that they came and saw and conquered so swiftly.
Indeed, yeah.
And I think that's kind of there's an element in common there with Midtown, I guess, who kind of again sort of came out of nowhere. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. And
they've got that suaveness.
Right. They've got that. I think suaveness.
One of the things I really love about Midtown is the fact that they're all such individual characters on stage. They form the quartet perfectly well, but the bass has a completely different on-stage persona to the tenor, and I absolutely love it. The way that you can watch that and think that's a really solid quartet, and then spend a decent portion of each song that you listen to watching a different member of the quartet do something equally interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So the last thing, the way to sum this up really is to say, go and listen to as much barbershop as you can. Absolutely fill your Spotify and your YouTube recommendations with loads of barbershop, and listen critically. Don't don't say that just because a quartet is a gold medal quartet that you have to do everything like them, because you're not them. Listen to lots, but be prepared to say, I really like the way that X quartet does this, but I don't like their vowel sounds, or I don't know why they don't spend longer on this word or longer on this chord, or they fluff the tuning there, or, you know, be really critical. Be okay with being critical, and take the things that you like, and incorporate them into aspects that you do. And if there's something that you're not so fond of, throw it out. It's only fashions, as I said earlier. Don't feel that you need to, you know, stick with it.
And figure out why you don't like it as well.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. I think we tried to do that when we started singing. You know, we'd listen to a lot of quartets and try and pinpoint why exactly it was. And I think that's a really useful exercise.
I think it'll often help you find more things that you don't like, because if you start to understand why something about what a quartet does disagrees with you, you'll start to pick up on more things more easily, and then you can find your way more swiftly towards your sound, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, shall I move on to the next slide?
Yeah.
That's on the next one, yeah.
Cool. So this is pretty much the end here. I don't think we'd really exactly set a specific person to talk about this section, but we all have things to say in this, I think, which is, if you're going to kind of have a successful quartet, successful quartet identity, you kind of need to spend time actively thinking about that as a quartet and talking about that with each other and saying, yeah, what are our priorities, right? Traditionally in Sound Hypothesis, we hold a kind of yearly meeting, normally over food. I think this was just a miscellaneous dinner at my place, actually, in that photo. But there'll always be food involved. It'll be a brunch, there'll be eggs, etc. And we'll talk about the upcoming year, and we'll talk about all of the things that we think we might want to achieve. And that's really important, because then it allows you to kind of set the identity, at least for the year, of the quartet. And I guess the goals of the quartet, they change, and you have to reevaluate them, I suppose. And so I guess when we were looking for, new members, when we were looking for Hugh, we were kind of looking for someone who we thought might share the kind of the general quartet goals, I suppose.
Yeah, this links into my experience auditioning for these guys quite recently. It was obviously the musical component, but there was also just making sure that the group communicated to me what they all had in mind, what they would like to do in the near future, in the sort of more longer term, and making sure that I was on board with that. I understood what the sort of commitments would be, and that I'd get behind that. So and I'm guessing that's something that you did before as well for when you took on ABC. But just I guess a really useful thing to make sure that new members are in the right headspace for it.
Yeah, and it applies to more than just new members. I mean, just having a chat, trying to stay on that same page, so that, someone doesn't, you don't have a chat in 6 months' time and someone says, what? I thought we were definitely going to go to international this year. I've been saving all my money and having a miserable life. I mean, sure, right? I mean, you want that. You want to have everyone to stay on the same page, and things change, And I guess we've lost members, but we've always lost them at the end of nice big things that we've all worked towards.
Yeah, I think kind of important to say, like, it's obviously having these meetings is great, but I think compromise, that means we're not always necessarily on the same page, and we're not always necessarily on the same page in a way that makes for an easy conversation either. I mean, it doesn't always end in the way that somebody leaves the quartet because of X, Y, and Z reasons, which happens occasionally. But I think we have had some hard discussions, but I think it speaks to our want to drive whatever sound hypothesis is forwards into the future, that we have made those compromises as individuals and as a quartet as well.
Yeah, and it goes to what you prioritize. I mean, what I think what we prioritize is not working so hard that we all hate it and we all want to stop. You know, we prioritize wanting sound hypothesis to continue, and so if that means taking things a little easy, or not going to international one particular year, then so be it. You know, and having everybody just bear that in mind and try. I mean, this is what I think is kind of trying to stick together, trying to stay in the same lane. And it's good to have someone driving the quartet, being that little bit of a push. And I think we've all been that person perhaps at different times. But it's also good to just, if that's you at any particular moment, just to kind of check in with yourself and say, well, we've all got jobs. It's not the only thing in life, and just kind of being okay with saying, yeah, never mind. We'll still have fun, and we'll still be together, and we'll still, that goes to the be kind as well. Just remembering that barbershop is, so I'm told, not the only thing in life, and to just to be kind and considerate to your quartet mates, because they like it just like you do.
And on that lovely note, I think we'll go to a Q&A now. So if anyone has any questions, then now is the time to get your burning sound hypothesis questions out about any of the subjects of this talk or anything else.
Hi again, guys.
Q&A.
Hello, welcome back.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Do you want to stop sharing your screen so we can see all your lovely faces and
I will
see what your
yes.
reactions are with the Q's and the A's? Thanks. How do you feel after presenting?
That's
Scary,
definitely it's a weight off. It's
Cool. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you. One of them from Chris is, speaking of quartet identity, how do you think your quartet identity will change now that you've got Hugh as baritone? Or do you think it will change? I mean,
it's probably quite tricky to put to words, I guess. / it's a case of figuring it out as we go along. But I don't know what you guys think. You have more experience than I do with taking on a new member in a barbershop quartet.
I think it'll probably change because of a number of things, like the way that we're approaching rehearsals, the amount of stuff that we've all got going on as individuals. Outside of taking on a new member, I think a lot is probably going to change in the next year, 2 years with this quartet anyway. I think we've sat down, I think more often than not, and just had a real clear-cut discussion about what we and talked about some new things that I think we want to be touching on as well. So I think there's a lot to be explored, and I think over the next few months we'll probably have a better idea. But it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's organic, right? I mean, we know Hugh already, as it happens. So the dynamic just subtly shifts when you have one person in, one person out. But I think we know that we're going to keep having fun, and that was important when we took Hugh on, was we knew that we would keep having fun, and we knew that we would keep singing good barbershop, I think. So,
Yep.
That to
I mean,
me,
with a
that's
gold medal,
the only two things. That's all I want. I want to keep having fun and keep singing good barbershop.
That does kind of sum everything up a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what more do you want?
Also, in terms of the actual sound, in obviously early days, so a lot of work to be done. But in an early rehearsal, you said it's a very different sound, because Aaron, who's just left, has an amazing voice, and his voice is maybe a bit, on a very simple level, probably a bit louder than mine. So just literally the balance of everything shifts a bit, and I'm sure there's more nuanced aspects to it than that. But yeah, just to get the obvious, the sound will change.
Cool.
Yeah, I think one important thing as well is we're finally going to be able to have like the kind of in-depth discussions about set theory that we've always wanted to. And this is something that is, because Aaron, bless his heart, he's a medic. He doesn't really know how to do maths.
No.
Now we've got Hugh here, kind of Oxbridge educated, kind of genius. We can talk about Cantorian sets and the kind of the hotel. What is it called? The hotel room problem. What was that
Hilbert's
one?
Hotel.
Hilbert's Hotel. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
That did spark like a 2 long day discussion. It was great.
This actually leads into another question that I had, this time from Ollie. You've talked about tuning by numbers. Now that you've been singing together for a while, or most of you have, is it still as important for you, or is it a lot of natural tuning by ear now?
It's like, do you know that scene in The Matrix with Neo? Where
Which one?
Kind of,
he's in a lot of them.
Where he sees the numbers and the symbols. Yeah. It's like that now. We don't have to think about it. No,
Do you think you're on the same page, Hugh?
Hugh's amazing at tuning. He's he's a natural.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I got one from Mary. Sorry, they're coming in from all different places. If you could only choose one out of the following, which would you choose to prioritize in the early days of a quartet? So we've got sound
Having
bonding.
fun.
Wait, no, I haven't read them out yet. Calm down. Sound bonding, similar goals, matching skill experience / level. I guess having fun is an option if you want to add ones, but
What were they?
Was
again?
They're all really important.
Sound bonding. Similar goals, I guess. Having matching skill experience level, like getting everyone up to the same level if you're all like, I don't know.
I think,
or none of the above.
Personally, I think sound, if we're going with the three, I think sound bonding's probably the easiest one to try and identify in the group. I think obviously you can talk about goals and what you want to be doing, but I think if you want to sing together, then you will probably find a way to sing together. And I think one of the key ways to try and actually make sure that people want to keep doing that is to have those moments where you're like, did we just sing that chord that good? And then figuring out why that is, because that for me, that's one of the reasons that I definitely stayed or like got hooked very quickly, was because of that.
So you're interpreting sound bonding as in sonic.
Wait, I think she's just clarified sound / bonding. Oh yeah, no, I misread. I'm sorry, Mary. Sound or bonding or other things. So sound bonding is something as well.
Well, no, so
I'm so sorry. I missed the comma.
Sound is important.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Sound bonding. Sound bonding.
I guess also bonding is important as well, and good bonding is.
We should change our name to the sound bondage.
Anyway, moving on.
I feel like being good pals, because circumstance can change, and it does. But being good pals, as long as you can kind of see a way forward. Like obviously, if someone wants to do 2 rehearsals a week, and then do convention, and one person lives in a different city and they can't, then that's not going to work either. But if you're good friends and you enjoy when you can sing together, then actually a lot of the rest of the stuff is you can work around it, because circumstances change anyway. But if you don't want to rehearse, as in if you kind of not really mad about the people, then you're not going to want to do two rehearsals a week anyway, and you're going to split up. You've got to be friends. You've got to be friends. Someone once said about forming a quartet, you should sing tags and drink beers for the first 2 months, and forget about everything else. Forget about goals, forget about coaching, forget about anything else, because at the end of the day, if you don't want to sing tags and drink beers, you're not going to be or hang out, of course, then you're not going to be a quartet. You're not going to last.
That is fantastic. I really like that. That was great.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sound bonding. Yes.
So sound bondage. Okay, I've got one
That's a
from
different live stream.
Hugh Parker. How long did it take you to find a name, and were you thinking about your identity as a quartet when you picked it?
That's a great question. We used to be called the Bingham Boys. I don't. A lot of people don't know that. But that's a little
Why?
bit of trivia. Well,
Where did it come from?
because there was a sort of fictional character that I was working on for a long time called Sandra Bingham, who was this sort of, I don't know, kind of matriarchal coach of the quartet, potentially. I'm not really sure. She was a character, and we were the Bingham Boys as a result. And she had a whole backstory, which I've forgotten now, but I think
Are you a
we're going to go into
writer, or-
competition. You know, I'm a dilettante. Some say polymath, some say dilettante. What happened? We decided it was a silly name, and then what happened? We went through so many names. We went through hundreds and hundreds of names. I think
It's really hard. Finding a quartet name is impossible.
You remember any other ones?
We've got them on a spreadsheet somewhere. Maybe I'll have a look for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to say that our name, we wanted our name to be sciencey, actually, because
That's
we were
true.
all from Imperial. So I suppose even in that respect, it did represent us a bit, and we've grown into it as well. You can't say that one.
I found the
Conrad.
You
dot.
found
I get the
it.
feeling Conrad's found it. Yeah.
I know which one he's
Oh
laughing at.
my god!
No more
Do
screen
you?
sharing.
We had filthy temperament.
Wow.
These are great.
I've got
I think
a couple more
outrageous
questions for
foreplay was
you.
one of them.
Yeah,
as well.
go for it. Go for it, Pippa.
Moving
go for
on,
Pippa.
how much of your identity do you attribute to your experiences with the tectonics from Alan?
Ooh, Hugh, would you
That's
like to
very
take
good
this?
Of the identity, I don't know. I'd say it's definitely very different. I mean, I think I'm going to struggle to answer exactly the identity thing, but in terms of like individual experience, definitely sort of I don't know. Having experience singing and having to worry about tuning is definitely useful. But yeah, identity, I'm going to struggle with that.
I think
What about the
it's
rest of
some.
you?
I think it's some because the Tectonics was all about having fun and being a little bit like our own people. ABC, do you want to mention about when we went to the ICCA finals? And
Oh yeah, I think this is one of the things we were talking about, wasn't it? In that when the Tectonics went to the ICCA finals and won, I think the takeaway that a lot of people had from it was that it was essentially 9 groups doing exactly the same thing, and then the Tectonics on top of that, who were essentially there to just have a good time and show the audience who they were, all of them as individuals, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the, actually, yeah, I think that's probably one of the things that we, consciously or not, at least try to take forwards, in that you do better and you inherently just feel better about performing when you are being more true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
so this has been the theme really throughout.
Yeah.
If you take away one thing, but it's worth saying that that's not easy. It takes time to be comfortable enough, to be vulnerable enough to say, this is us and we want to tell you a story. And that's taken us years to get there. But when you do, it's a great feeling. And our social media has developed over the years, and it's become more us. And almost in tandem, our onstage performance has become more us.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I think we're drawing to the end of our session now, so I've got one final question for you all. Jacob asks, as you enjoy tags and beers, what are your favorites of each?
That's a great question.
One
That's a
per
very good
person,
question.
please. Otherwise, it's going to get messy.
One of my favorite beers is Tribute. from
That is
Cornwall.
an excellent beer. I
And your
agree.
favorite tag as well is the tribute tag by Tenacious D, isn't it?
Someone else say a tag then.
Oh, it could be one per person. I
One
didn't
of the tags that I've really got into more recently is Gingham Gown. I love that tag now. Yeah, it's so good.
I have a
Excellent.
special place in my heart for any sort of 6-part tag. And when it's sleepy time down south, 6-part is frankly a banger as far as I'm concerned. So fond of that. Beer wise, I'm partial to a Belgian style beer.
Not
I'm not
bad.
going to give a brand.
Hugh, what do you think?
Oh man, I'm finding both parts of the question kind of tricky.
Do you know many tags?
Not,
I guess.
I'm not gonna
We-
be able to compare to say Alex's encyclopedic knowledge of tags. We're working
Feather-bound
through
book knowledge.
we're working through seeing a bunch of tags in rehearsal actually is a good thing to do. Give me the background knowledge. I think I'll give you a beer to start off with. I think that I'm just gonna sit down in a
Spit
pub
it out.
and I'm worried I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. Estrella?
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Sit down, have one of them. Fantastic.
Beavertown Gamma Ray. There you go. Got it in. Done.
Cool.
As time goes by, that's my tag. As time goes by.
Oh, sentimental. Cool. Well, thank you so much, guys. It has been wonderful having you on tonight. And thank you, audience, for joining this SingSeptember session. And it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you, although I wasn't here for most of it, but that's cool. I was listening sneakily in the background. Just remember, the audience who are watching, please remember we have a few more events to come before we do close SingSeptember. So make sure you check out the website and take care, everybody. Stay safe, take care, and we all look forward to hopefully seeing you in person soon. So bye. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.